So let me say a few words about our company, Bolabit. We are a Hungarian company, but now our headquarters is in Luxembourg, and we basically have three types of solutions in IT security. One that is very well known is syslog-ng. It's a log management solution that is over 1 million company uses in the world. And we have also privileged access monitoring solution, but I will be talking about a new direction that our development has taken lately, and that is user behavior analytics, and we do have a new product in this area as well. So let's first look at if this is working, but it's not working.
Button down. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, button.
First, let's look at this chart that shows what happens, what kind of challenges IT security faces these days. This data is from the Ponemon Research Institute. As you can see, this is actually a priority order. So the biggest challenges that IT security faces today are human errors. That's 35%, as you can see. But we also have internal fraud, external fraud, and system malfunctions is also a problem. But what I would like to emphasize here is that 60% of all these issues are human-related issues. So when we will talk about in the next few slides about user behavior analytics, this is what we always try to figure out, what the humans might do and how that can be tracked and how can be corrected. Well, today we have some solutions that we use, for controlling access to networks. Obviously, we have passwords that has been with us for a long time. We also have now multi-factor authentication. Since almost every one of us are carrying smartphones, it became a little bit easier, although Bill Gates said it in 2004 that passwords are passé, so I'm not the first one who think that passwords are history, but still today it's almost all our networks are controlled through passwords. We also have, in the meantime, solutions for controlling privileged identity and access management via password management systems that can give us gradual access to networks. And there are solutions. We also have a solution for controlling privileged sessions. But these are solutions that cannot really help us if we have this problem. If an attacker already has the access, the passwords necessary to gain access to the network, we definitely are facing a serious problem in that case. And what is even worse is this situation. I don't know if you're aware of it, and this is also from the same research institute. As you can see from this chart, that only 10% these lower three charts are showing those incidents that were discovered within 3 months' time. That means that everything else is either discovered in 6 months, a year, 2 years, or actually never discovered whether there was a breach in the network. So it is not easy to have these potential breaches discovered, and this just shows that if a potential attacker has already the identity that is basically a legitimate user on the network, then we are facing a serious problem. In that case, this is where my maybe a little too strong expression comes in. Then in that case, we can say the passwords are not sufficient. What is the problem with passwords? Well, normally, passwords are one-stop authentication. We typically log in, and we have a single line of authentication. But one must ask this question, why can't we have a continuous authentication, something like this, where we not only authenticate a particular user at one particular time, but we have a continuous authentication. But how can that happen? How can we implement such authentication without basically making everybody totally mad that they have to figure out a new password in every 10 seconds, or they have to use smart cards or smartphones frequently, and so on. So there has to be a solution. We think there is a solution to that, and this is, well, that's basically the behavior. And if we can truly track the behavior of the users, that definitely could continuously authenticate them. We created a product that we call BLINDSPOTTER, and the reason why we call this product BLINDSPOTTER is because we realized that even with the best existing security solutions, there are certain blind spots remain on the network. And these are what we typically call unknown unknowns. If an attacker would come in with a new type of approach that was never tried, never really been attempted before, then really none of the existing CM solutions could, for instance, detect that type of problem. So we think that we can do this through behavior user analytics. And I selected a quote from a biologist because we are talking about human behavior. So human behavior is basically the internally coordinated response to any living organism, to internal or external stimuli. And let me give you some basic ideas, what user behavior analytics is dealing with. User behavior analytics, first, what it does, it tries to collect what we call digital footprints. When we log into a network, we leave all kinds of logs, and we can be logged, and we leave a lot of traces of our activity, and this can be logged and recorded. But from these digital footprints, user behavior analytics solutions will try to also build what we call a normal behavior or a baseline behavior. And then we look for this kind of deviation, because something that is not normal can be easily detected if that's the case. And once we identify these unusual activities in real time, then we can act on it, or we can do something. Digital behavior can be many things. It can be access, what type of servers a particular user would access, the applications used, typical commands being used, screen resolution, typing dynamics, or time of logon. But there are some other potential elements of behavior that can be examined: unusual amount of activity, unusual source IP, mouse movements, unusual access to various kinds of data, and unusual commands. So all of these things can be observed, recorded, and we can use it. IT security could detect, with the help of this type of behavior analysis, hijacked accounts easily, because let's presuppose that one of the privileged users' account was hijacked. That will basically show us a very different behavior from the usual activity of that user. And since we have established a normal behavior for that particular user, for this reason, it will be easy to differentiate the behavior of the hijacked account. We can also detect if privileges are misused. That happens also actually frequently, that let's say we have an employee that is about to be fired, and that person happens to be a network administrator, a system administrator, and he would just want to do some kind of harm to the employer, or it can be also an account that was hijacked, or somebody would through a phishing or an APT attack would acquire an account and then would try to raise the privileges using an exploit. So there is many potential uses that we can detect. We can also identify when a particular account that belongs to obviously a real user is being used by a script. That's actually not so difficult to do, because automated scripts or scripts in general will behave very differently from true individuals. We can also use user behavior analytics to support certain IT security decisions. What happens with IT security personnel, that because of their work, they seem to acquire higher and higher privileges on the network, just because there were incidents and they had to get access to certain areas. So that means that there is maybe so many privileges for one particular super user that he never needs it. And simply with analyzing the behavior of the privileged users, we can detect that these are certain privileges that we shouldn't already, or shouldn't allocate anymore to that person. What is very important to emphasize when we talk about user behavior analytics is that we are not doing something similar to what CM solutions do. So we don't try to establish and create patterns or identify patterns and then correlate them to particular activities. What we do instead, we just look for deviation, for anomalies. And I give you here one example of, let's say, this is a weekday login chart of a person. We know obviously the login time would be around 8, 9 o'clock. And if we see, let's say, a login at midnight, that's obviously a deviation, so that we would consider an unusual access. That's just an example. Now, user behavior analytics didn't really have to reinvent the wheel or, start from nothing, because the algorithms, the mathematics existed and exist behind this. I already showed you the time distribution, or we can use kernel density analysis. We can use what we call association rule learning or frequent item set mining, where what you see here is an example where SSH protocol is connected, is used simultaneously with port 22. And this is, let's say, a normal association. And when we see something that is here indicated that is unusual, we can also recognize that and do so. There are some other algorithms that we can take over from fraud management systems or even retail thinking. I'm sure all of you are familiar how, let's say, Amazon.com or Spotify or this type of retailers associate and recommend certain things, how they cluster our taste into some areas, and how they recommend new music or new type of books for us. So these are something, again, we can use when we try to identify a behavior or a particular user. It's more interesting. The next one, we can use all kinds of text analysis. Here, it's hard to see it actually. These are examples how Cisco administrators are using commands, when they want to access certain routers. And so from that, again, because there are many ways to do that, we can identify certain type of behavior that is very specific to a particular person. So I also want to give you an example how we don't really just classify, but we also prioritize events. If we wouldn't do that, then you would create huge number of false alarms, and we don't want to do that. So let's take this example where we have 4 different events. In terms of deviation, you know, you see that we have the lowest one, the green one is indicating, let's say, a trainee who is logged in normal time, so that's green, no problem. The yellow ones would be a DBA, database administrator, accessing, let's say, as Oracle database, and the next one would be start downloading customer data. So if we look at not only the deviation, but also the risk factor, what happens is that it suddenly changes, you know, the priorities, because obviously the deviation, let's say, of the login of the trainee would not be a serious issue than, let's say, the DBA starting downloading the customer table. So we change, you know, based on the risk factor, obviously we prioritize these things. We also don't automate any response from this, but rather what we do in such situations, we actually send a message to IT security personnel that they should investigate, because this is an issue here that definitely has to be investigated, but it could be a legitimate issue as well, that administrator received an instruction to do this. So we can initiate an investigation. And if the investigation turns out to be, you know, that it's a legitimate activity, then it's passed. But if it turns out that it is a malicious activity, obviously we can act on that real time. There's another example I put up here because it's fairly unusual kind of picture. Not usually you wouldn't see this, but this is how, if you try to visualize your mouse activity, this is what it would look like. And we can do this also with the keystroke, analyzing the keystroke dynamics. And this, the mouse movements as well as the keystroke dynamics would be very particular to users. And we could, if somebody would be interested, we could demonstrate it, how easy it is to differentiate based on this type of behavior, the various users. But this is, again, something that we can use to authenticate or identify users. So in general, what we try to say and try to do with this new product development is that instead of just the standard authentication, if we put user behavior analytics on top of it, then we have a continuous authentication ability. We can detect changes real time. And biometrics is very difficult to imitate, so it is fairly stable. So I'm almost completed my presentation, but I have to show you something. We designed a hat. I actually stole the idea from Crime Scene Investigation. You're probably familiar with that series. This we stole from them because there is also e-crime. And we wanted to have this hat as a symbol of those IT security guys who try to use the most sophisticated, most up-to-date tools for identifying potential breaches on their networks. So any one of you that would like to become one of these sophisticated IT security users or personnel, then should come to our desk and we can give you a hat like this. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. Laszlo, so we will see, does anybody has any questions? Yeah, okay, I'm coming with the microphone. This stays here for a while. 1 second.
Thank you for the presentation. As we all know, biometrics cannot be a source of the only authentication information. It cannot be a source of encryption or something. It's just some complementary data which we can verify or accept or reject. Still, there is some transport needed and so on and so on. So, indeed, this does not solve the problem, the password issue. But okay, that's fine to have it as a secondary thing, but passwords are to remain.
I guess this is true what you said, and I don't think we would dare to say that we have solved the problem of passwords. So that's why I think my title, as well as my words about passwords are dead, would be truly a little bit overboard. But it is a very important addition that we can put on top of the existing security solutions. If we have this type of user behavior analytics tool installed, then you can detect certain what we call blind spots of IT security systems that with the other existing IT security solutions, you cannot. So these are patterns that we are not known. We don't know. We are not ready to, once they happen, they can be, used as patterns that software can recognize. But for those type of issues that will appear the first time, but could be just as dangerous, user behavior analytics could assist you. And that's our objective, actually. And not some, 100% replacement. That was more just a joke on my side.
Okay, and other questions? Right?
You mentioned that you could show those patterns for individual users.
We can record, we can record those patterns and we can compare them to what happens. And it's almost impossible, for scripts to imitate your user patterns.
But don't you have any samples now to show? Or
yeah, if you come to our stand, we can show.
Okay.
We can show you, for instance, the keystroke and mouse.
Yeah, and you will get a hat for a great question
That's
as
right.
well. Right. So, Laszlo, in that case, I would say that password is the only authentication method. Yeah, it might be that. So, if it helps. Anyway, a nice presentation. Thank you very much. Here's a certificate you could